You're busy, you've got a decent practice, but nobody wants to be decent. You want to be great, and you want to have a great practice. So how did the most productive, profitable dentist in the nation balance real life, work, and profits, and somehow make it all seem fun? Well, it comes down to simple, everyday practices. So grab a lunch, join us as we chat with top clinicians and influencers to discover their formula for uncommon success. Are you ready? Then it's time to explore everyday practices with Vicki McManus-Peterson and Dr. Chad Johnson.
Welcome, everybody, to Everyday Practices. This is Chad Johnson, and I'm here today with Dr. Jeff Buske. Jeff, how you doing, man?
I am so good, brother. It is great to see you and to hear you, man. I apologize for my voice a little bit.
I was just going to broach the subject. Tell us about that. It sounds like you've been at camp all week.
Yeah. It wasn't like some crazy, out of control, fun, wild, guys weekend or something. It was actually, I'll be a little bit raspy today, but we were actually coaching and training for our first program that we threw for Dental Syndicate, man. Yeah. And we had 18 people there, which is just awesome, man, for our first program right out of the gates. And it was just outstanding. Huge distinctions, breakthroughs. It was just pretty incredible this weekend. So yeah, I'm a little hoarse, and but man, I wouldn't trade it. It was just awesome weekend. Great experience for everybody.
That is awesome. Say, tell me, so you, just for the listeners, you have begun the Dental Syndicate.
Right.
Tell us about the Dental Syndicate and tell us about Heroes Calling.
So the Dental Syndicate is going to be set up for docs, for dentists to be coming through. And it really is the best way that I can describe it. It's kind of like if you take and just look at merging all these things together to actually look at starting to not only A, find your voice, but B, really create all these distinctions wrapped around your vision. And what I find that gets in the way, really, truly, is us. So when I say us, like when I'm looking at myself, I mean me. And like I am my biggest downfall in so many areas. And that is some things that when we have this opportunity to work through that, now you start to create this huge opportunity for things to shift. And we look at like 4 very, very specific areas in our life, right? Where we start to look at creating this harmony before us that's laid out. So like we call it body, being, balance, and business, or you can look at it as faith, fitness, family, finance, however you want to term that. But we're really creating this harmonious opportunity for all of those areas to really come together at one time. So when you sit there and think about it, Chad, think about this. Like, I'm sure you've thought about it because you're just an amazing doc.
No,
and I love spending
wrong podcast.
Some time with you. But we've all had this opportunity, right, where we're like, okay, I want to practice dentistry in this elite level, right? I want to deliver my dentistry at an elite level. But at the same time, I also want to have like a life, and I want my life to actually work. And so for me, I would have like 1 or 2 areas of my life working pretty well, and the others were just, they were just sucking ass.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
does that make sense?
It does. What I hear is it's Tony Robbins meets Tough Mudder at summer camp.
Yeah, or I like it as Tony Robbins meets Navy SEALs Hell Week versus Fight Club. No, I'm kidding.
Right. Well, pretty much. I mean, call it what we want. You said body. You said balance. What were our other couple B's?
Being and business.
Business.
Yeah. So if you think of it, your body is going to be to look at gearing toward, your health and your fitness, and not like you need like 6-pack abs or anything of that nature. But look, dude, if we're not taking care of ourselves physically,
yes,
all the money in the world doesn't make a difference. You're going to spend all that money trying to recover and get yourself not sick,
yes,
or not broken down.
Jeff, what's cool is over the last couple of years, I told Carrie, my coach through Productive Dentist Academy, that I wanted to move my clinical hours earlier. So for the listeners, I do my clinical hours 6 to noon. And then in the afternoons, I actually do my second workout. So like I normally wake up early and I do a half hour wake me up. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, dude.
And then I finish it in the afternoon. That's just to wake me up. I mean, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And it almost seems like it's almost like cheating, but I'm just like, no, it's getting me started. Then in the afternoon is the kill me workout.
Yeah.
And I don't call it that. I don't know. I just came up with that, but it's the more intense cardio workout, or the more intense lifting workout, whether it be swimming or biking or whatever I want to do. And, but I told her, I said, if I spend that time making myself healthy, then I can do more in those 6 hours straight in the morning than if I did 8 hours or if I did 40 hours a week. And I've put it on paper too. So it's not just like me coming up with this. So it's really cool. When you started talking about it, it really was putting to paper what I had been thinking, like, hey, so I was totally on the same wavelength when you introduced this at the workshop.
Right.
So I just wanted to point out to the listeners, if people did come to the PDA, the Productive Dentist Academy workshop, you have a kind of a cameo session that you go through a few minutes of talking about your program.
Right.
Yeah. And how's it been received?
Dude, awesome. We've had just great feedback.
Darn right.
People are just on fire about this. And, I did it in the way that I came about it. It was like to a response of like, my life was burning down. So it wasn't just like, hey, I want to just make life a little bit better. It was like my life was burning down, like on fire. Like I was headed towards divorce number 2, and just, wheels were starting to go off the train tracks, right?
So hold up. Tell us about it. Because a lot of people, like when you see someone that's got their act together, you go, I bet so far as I could find out, or what they believe, their life has been 95% put together and they've always just had their act together. And I mean, you've had your act together, but like at the same time, tell me, back up, you were successful,
right?
But you weren't feeling like you had everything in balance.
Correct. It's one thing to be successful from a monetary standpoint.
Sure.
And that's the thing. Like I was very guilty, and I don't know if your listeners can appreciate this or if they can, if this resonates with them. But like for me, I was like, the answer was just going to be like more money. Like, hey, if I produce more, then I'm going to be happier. If I produce more, then my family's going to be better. If I produce more, I'm going to feel like I have more purpose.
Yes.
If I produce more, then I can afford to do this and I'm going to be healthier. When actually, instead of taking a stand and just saying, no, I need to shift my thinking, and I'm not just showing up as an ATM machine, right?
Yes.
And I'm showing up and actually taking responsibility for my life, including especially what's not working, and having that cold, hard look in the mirror and going, holy cow. Yeah, I can go to work and produce like crazy, but in the meantime, parts of my life are just on fire and burning in flames. And that's the funny thing, because just like you said, Chad, like we look at so many people that we hold and up on like a pedestal or in such high esteem, and we're like, oh, their life's got to be awesome. But in reality, I've seen where those people's lives are burning backstage,
Yes.
and it's like, but this is the thing that nobody's talking about.
No.
And guess what? I'm starting to talk, man. I'm going to raise my voice because, dude, it is time, man. It is time that we start to change what's happening in the dentistry.
Well, what you're talking about is just being transparent, and you go into it more. Like we were talking before we hit record, that you've got more to share, but there's people can hear it, of course, at the workshop or at the Heroes Calling, when you probably say, okay, here's my life. But the word that I hear, it's ownership. Owning up to your own problems and being able to, is that Jocko? What is
extreme ownership?
Yeah, extreme ownership. It's basically just like, all right, there's problems in the world, but wait a second. Sometimes a lot of times the problem is me.
Right.
When you come home and you're complaining about, man, my team, this and that at work, and they're always on the edge and just trying to walk around me on my toes, and it's like, maybe it's because you're a jerk and you make them walk on their toes, tippy toes.
Yeah, I bring this up where I talk about, my wife and kids used to feel like they were walking on eggshells. And
yes,
absolutely. I would go to the office and give the best of myself to people that were just like brand new patients in my practice.
Yes.
And then come home and all the stress and everything, then I would just like snap and be like this crazy emotional terrorist on my family.
Yeah. You dump your turd self on them.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
were tired, and and that's okay. You were tired and whatnot. We can all get that. Like if there's a sympathetic crowd, we'd get that. But I mean, at the same time, like how was that working for you?
Yeah, not at all. Like I said, I mean, getting to the point of like where literally if that continued, I would have been heading toward divorce number 2.
Yeah.
And, and when you sit there and you look at really what's at stake and what's on the line, that's why I take what I'm going to pour into our industry so seriously. Like, I mean, I look at it like people's lives are on the line, their marriages are on the line, their families are on the line, their balances are on the line, their businesses are on the line. And so I am taking a stand in dentistry, not only just to punch a big hole in it, but to actually looking at eradicating sedation, depression, scarcity, and suicide. Because those are the things that are just so conflicting in our industry that it's awful. Mm-hmm. And it's about time that we actually start talking about it and looking at doing something about it. And not only that, the way in which we're going to look at doing this, Chad, it not only increases productivity significantly, but it leaves you feeling powerful.
Right.
You actually own that power.
Right.
And you're like, holy cow. So just like you were talking about your workout, right? You're like, when I go in, I might only hit 20 minutes. Guess what? In the mornings, it's exactly what I do too. Mm-hmm. I'm hitting maybe like 20 minutes, maybe 30 tops, but 20 minutes.
You usually want more, but it's just like, listen, that's not its purpose.
I'm firing up my day, man.
Yeah.
And then that way I do that and a number of other things that we touch on more when we talk about this. But man, when I show up to work, I am on fire. And then that way, when I get hit with that first problem or the issue, I'm in a much better space to deal with that.
What I find is really cool about that. Like sometimes, people listen, I'm naturally a morning person.
Yes.
And believe it or not, everyone, this is being recorded late afternoon. So maybe I'm not just a morning person, but I am a morning person and I hit the ground running just like you talk about. And there's a passion to that. But some of these people I think could cultivate themselves to become, I don't know if I want to call it a morning person, but if they're not a morning person, as an example, that if they were to employ your program and your methods, they could become a morning person because all they're doing is they're being intentional about bringing their best at that moment. And it doesn't have to be the morning or the afternoon or the evening or whatever, but you're bringing your best to it because you're focused on bringing your best and again, owning that because you're making it happen, right?
Yeah. And it's not necessarily that it's like, we got to be so rigid on this, that it's got to be this morning routine or that. But
no,
what I find is like, if I can do it all through the day, but I'm not going to be in power then when I'm showing up at work.
Yes.
And I'm not going to be in power then when I'm coming home to my family. Does that make sense?
It does.
So like for me, it just makes sense to naturally put all these things together in the morning and then I rip it and then boom, now I'm off and going. And that's just like one aspect of it.
So for the listeners, I just want them to know that Jeff is partners at Granberry Dental Center with Bruce Baird. How long have you worked with him?
Bruce and I worked together for 15 years, man.
15 years.
Yeah. It's outstanding.
Yeah.
Just great place. And I mean, our philosophies were just awesome from the get-go. And I mean, I just can't say enough about how amazing it's been for us to have that partnership and to really, really deliver great care, but have a great time doing it.
Now, just in case people want to cross podcast or whatnot, Bruce Baird, this is Bruce B. Baird from the Productive Dentist Podcast. So everyone check out if you have been under a rock and you're listening to our podcast and not Bruce's, he's had you on. So I'm glad that we've brought you on. Is this our first time having you on or is this our second?
No, this is our first time here, man.
For some reason, I couldn't remember if we've done non-recorded stuff together, but like it started deja vuing. I was like, it almost seems like we've talked about this, but that's the cool thing about sharpening your minds with someone, such as yourself too, is it's calibrating me to be, thinking the way that you are when you talk to people like you, right? You talk to a bunch of Eeyores.
Yes.
Sure enough, you find yourself talking and thinking like Eeyores, but you talk and think with Jockos and you end up being a Jocko, right?
Exactly. And you're right. And you do own it. I mean, that's a big part of it. You just start to take ownership of so many things. And, And a big part of our training really consists of that, because it's all based around integrity. And it's actually, when you sit there and think about it like this, Chad, it's actually been proven that with implementing integrity in such a high amount, you can have a 300% increase in productivity. So integrity is an integral part of what we train. Super powerful.
I have nothing left to say. I just wanted to, I wanted to relish on that moment for now. Here's my last question. No, I have a superficial fun question that we'll finish with. That's dinky, but, regarding timing for people's lives. Okay. So someone gets right out of school. They're pretty motivated to be their best. And they're, the first day of work, they're going to be awesome. By the 7th year, they might be in a rut. But then if someone said, dude, you're in a rut, they might not believe it. I don't know. I'm just trying to create this avatar, this ideal person that would be for your program. But what I was getting at was timing matters. And sometimes people want to hear, and they're ready to hear that their life is ready for change, but they have to be ready for it, right? So if I went out and I said, you're a sinner, but that person isn't ready to hear that, they don't care, right?
Exactly.
So the same thing, but there comes a point when someone goes, wow, there's something wrong with me.
Right.
And can you talk about timing and the kind of person that you're looking for in that program, almost as though you were speaking to them to say, listen, now is the time, or if this program might not be for you because you don't think it's your time, but if it is your time, so tell that listener.
So that's a great question, Chad. And I appreciate that. And I'll just share a little background too. From this last weekend, there was anybody there from as young as 32. So, pretty close to being out of school for a couple of years, all the way up to 61 was the oldest. And so it's not necessarily an age thing. And the coolest thing about the program is you hit the nail on the head. It's really meeting people where they're at. And you're right, but they have to be ready to receive the message. So, you've got younger docs that are getting out of school and they're so stressed out about student loans. I mean, they might have $450,000 worth of loans.
That's right.
And if they're, married a classmate, they almost have $1 million worth of loans before they even turn a burr, right?
Right.
And then you've got the other practitioners who are seasoned, who are worried about corporate dentistry and insurance and, new patient flow and marketing. And gosh, now I got to understand, and I've got to become a marketer, and I've got to have all these things in play. And it just stresses them out. And they're like, I didn't sign up for this to have to learn all this stuff. And I still just want to hang up my shingle. And I realized that, my body's starting to break down because of all the years of dentistry, or, I'm not paying attention to my fitness anymore. Or gosh, I feel like I've lost part of my purpose. That is a huge part. As we go through, we're like, is this all it is? Is this is that it? Is my whole identity being wrapped around being a dentist? And that's a part of it. And then obviously, as we got into a little bit, the family portion is huge. So with your spouse and with your kids, I mean, so many docs, even docs and stuff this weekend, there's a huge disconnection with kids that we have because of the hours that we keep, or having to come home and then not only then just work at the practice, but then come home and work on it. So to have to learn to market, have to learn all that stuff. And it's next thing you know, you're just kissing your kids on the forehead goodnight.
Right.
Zero relationship with them.
That's the hidden hours take a toll.
Yeah. So having that where you feel like there's either disconnection with, your spouse or with your family, you're growing up and they're growing up and they don't even feel like they know you as a dad or a mom. I mean, that's a huge part, and a lot of the ladies that were there this last weekend, and that's a lot of the female dentists that were there, expressed, the mommy guilt. And they were talking about the mommy guilt, how it's such a real thing. And so, that's a big, big component. And then the business aspect, looking at, stressed out from payroll and all kinds of different things that you got to have set up for marketing, and making sure you know your numbers and not coming in, not knowing your numbers, because otherwise everything's based on fiction and fantasy.
Yeah.
If you're like, well, how's the new ad campaign doing? And your front office is telling, oh, good, we've gotten a lot of calls on it, Chad. Yeah, it's going well. And like the reality is like you had 3 calls.
Right.
You had like a couple $1,000s booked out of there, but you spent like $4,000 on your ads and your ad spend. So like
big win.
Yeah. So you're looking at it going, okay, what's the reality? And that's a huge part of it. So not only in that, but like in every area of your life, like what are the facts? Like where are you really at? Where's your business at? Where's your health at? Where's your purpose at? Where are you out there with your being or your spiritual connection with God or whatever that is for you, purpose, light, source, whatever it is that you believe in, and where are you at with your family? That's like one of the biggest things is like, I think 2 huge questions that I continue to ask myself all the time is where am I currently at and who do I have to become to get what I want?
Yeah.
Or my new target that I set. And those are like, I ask that all the time. And in like huge detail, I ask that every quarter. So every 90 days, I am asking that question and just hammering it. So now I have clarity around where I want to go.
I just wanted to get the wording right because I'm actually writing that down. So I apologize about leaving you on a monologue there, but where am I? And then
where am I at now? So that's just like, where am I at now is like the equivalent of like looking hardcore at yourself in the mirror and just taking it all in, right?
And then if in my own words, to see if I got it right, like, so who do I need to become to get to the place I want to go?
Right. So like
right?
if I have a target out there of like, okay, let's just say this. Let's just say that I'm going to go run a Spartan Beast for an example, right? But I can only run like 2 miles. Spartan Beast is going to be like 14 miles, 30 obstacles. Holy cow. That scares the crap out of me. I get a little tingly thinking about it, right? And I'm at this point in my life where my training is I can only run 2 miles. Well, who do I have to become within this 3-month period of time to train and to become that athlete to be able to complete that without dying out on the course? So then, you got to just consider that. Who's the possibility that I have to become? The same thing in your practice. Like, who do I have to become as a leader in my practice to take my practice to that level?
Yep.
But being really clear, getting so crystal clear on the distinctions of what do you want? Like, what do you want for your practice? What do you want for your marriage? What do you want for your relationship, for your kids?
And you know what I'm afraid is that some of this will fall on deaf ears by this time in the podcast, that some people will say, well, isn't that neat? And I don't mean it in a quaint way, but what they need to do is star this podcast and save it for later, because there will come a point when they're thirsty for this message. Absolutely. And it just needs to be the right timing.
Dude, I would tell you, this is probably not for a good chunk of people.
Yes.
But for the people that it is for, it's like life-saving.
Yeah.
You're right. That are ready to hear the message.
Yeah.
Because they're like at a point where like, A, they either need a significant change going on in their life, or B, they're ready to be able to, what I would call, practice dentistry at an elite level and live a have-it-all lifestyle.
So Heroes Calling is the first 4-day event in the Dental Syndicate curriculum.
Correct.
You said that there is an event coming up in October, or did I mishear that?
Nope. We got our next event is going to be October 24th through the 27th.
Okay.
And that's going to be out in Orange County. Be out in OC, baby.
Awesome. And just so the listeners know, you're in Texas, in Granberry, on the west side of Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Correct.
Where are you originally from?
Originally, I grew up in Minnesota.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, man. So I grew up in Rochester, Minnesota originally, home of the Mayo Clinic.
Yes.
And IBM.
No kidding, IBM too.
Yeah, those were the 2 big industries and big professionals there. So that's where I grew up. And then I started school at St. Thomas for undergrad.
Yeah.
Came down to Texas, finished up at A&M.
Yep.
Stayed and went to dental school in Texas at Baylor. And then started working, man. I've been practicing now 22 22 years.
Yep.
Pretty crazy.
Very cool.
And still loving it.
Well, if also people just want to do the get your toes wet, we have a PDA workshop coming up in September. And if you're listening to this later, we always have them in February, if I've got this right, February, June, and September of every year. So if there's always a workshop coming up, even if this is 5 years from now. And Jeff, hopefully people can hear you and get that message and see how you've branded this, because it's really cool. I've really been impressed, and I'm just looking you in the eye that listeners can't see right now, but like I want you to know I've been really impressed with seeing the change in you the last couple of years from what I've known about you, from years past, and then from what I've seen and how intentional you are with your family, with your dental practice. And this not only makes your family better, but no lie, it has to make your composites better. And so I could have said it the other way around, but the truth is, of course, this is going to matter to your family, but I want you to know that I can see that difference, and I'm really proud of you. And, being able to tell guys that it helps. So I'm very proud of you. And I'm looking forward to, that's right, I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds for you. And if anyone else wants to hear you, then by all means, check out the Dental Syndicate. Also, check out our Productive Dentist Academy workshops. And I have one more silly question for you. You have to choose one or the other, bacon or eggs.
Dude, bacon, man. Bacon is the candy of meat.
All right. There you have it. There you have it, folks. Bacon was the answer from Dr. Buske.
Yeah. Hey, Chad, too, if anybody does want to get a hold of me, literally, I'm super easy to find on Facebook, Jeff Buske. You can PM me on there, too, if you got a question about it.
Buske, Buske.
Absolutely, dude. So
sweet.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
Absolutely a pleasure to talk to you, see you. And I'm super excited to connect here coming up in September. It's going to be awesome.
Yep, that ends our everyday practices. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.
Bring your lunch or take us to the gym again next week to improve your everyday practices. Also, subscribe on iTunes, follow us on social media, and sign up for our email list. Now get out there and win with everyday practices.